Florida had an impressive performance this past week, Mason. I mean, there's really, you know, look, LSU was able to sustain drives against Florida this past week. That is one thing that I can say. We talked about this on the overreaction show that we did earlier on Sunday. If you're watching this later in the week, but um, Florida lost the time of possession battle 2-3. LSU controlled the ball for 2/3 of the total clock time in that game against LSU. So, how in the world was Florida able to pull that one out, Mason? I still don't fully understand that, and I know part of it is the fact that LSU does not have an ability to run the football. Well, here we go. Here's Ole Miss, who also struggles to run the football. So Ole Miss and LSU are and I don't want anybody to get offended by this because defensively they couldn't be farther apart, but offensively they are very similar. So Florida is going to kind of see, I feel like, a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same style 2 weeks in a row here offensively, where they just had some success defensively against LSU. The big difference here is the defense for Ole Miss in this one. That defensive line is no joke, Mason. They're absolutely no joke. We all saw what they did to Georgia and that Georgia offensive line, and you can say it was a bad game or Georgia had guys out. All of that may be true, but I saw what I saw, and this defensive line for Ole Miss was blowing Georgia off the football, and that's not words that we say a lot. So I've got a lot of faith in this Ole Miss defense. And everything's on the line here for Ole Miss. Now, do they control their own destiny? No, but they've got to put a good foot forward here going on the road to the swamp to keep in good standing in the SEC conference as, tiebreakers work themselves out. Teams go head to head here towards the end of the season, and you just got to kind of hope for a loss from somebody else while taking care of business. I think that the storyline here is kind of funny too, considering the fact that Florida was just talking about they were going to get a new coach not that long ago. All the fans were anyway. And there was everybody said Lane Kiffin immediately. Lane Kiffin, if he's offered the job, he's leaving Ole Miss. He's headed to Florida. And then Florida comes out, Scott Strickland comes out and says, we're sticking with Napier, whether that's genuine, whether that's to keep recruits on board, who knows? Who knows? We're not Florida insiders. I won't speculate. But I do think that is kind of an interesting underlying storyline, and I'm not ruling out the possibility that Lane Kiffin doesn't end up at Florida one day. I think that is a possibility for sure. Maybe even so much as like a 10% possibility, which I would think would be a lot as far as odds. I think it's likely he could end up down there one day, but not this Saturday, buddy. I don't think Florida is well equipped for this. DJ Lagway did not run the ball hardly at all this past weekend. We know that he had the hamstring injury against Georgia. I don't know how the dude's even on the field. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't even understand how that works. Is it the Gatorade? I don't know what it is. But he's out there, and his passing game hasn't suffered. It looks a lot the same, pretty explosive. Florida gets some explosive plays in the pass game when he's at quarterback. Is he the most efficient? No, not the most efficient, but like I said, that pop play is worth it. You think that Florida's going to be able to run the football enough in this game to be able to hang with Ole Miss?
Do I think that Florida is going to be able to run?
Because if Florida can't run the football, then I mean they're just going to get absolutely murdered here, buddy.
What's interesting about this game is both teams, like you can't really look at the season stats for this football game and try to draw a conclusion out of that because DJ Lagway hasn't played all season. Yeah, Montreal Johnson is back. He looked pretty good last week against LSU, but do I think they're going to be able to run against Ole Miss? Probably not. Probably not. The good thing is this freshman quarterback, DJ Lagway, has one of the best deep balls you can find in college football right now. This guy is absolutely slinging it. I think he is the truth. I think that he is going to be a phenomenal college football quarterback. Is this a game where he can really maximize what he's given? My thing is, I don't think that Florida has the pieces at receiver to really do damage to this secondary of Ole Miss that is susceptible. Um, it's certainly more susceptible than the front seven for Ole Miss's defense. And while I think they have the quarterback to take advantage of it, I don't know if they have necessarily the pass catchers. Um, so no, I don't think that Florida runs the football very well. You're gonna see a similar clip that Miami, or excuse me, that Ole Miss has been given up all year long. They're second in the country in rushing yards per game, giving up 79.9 per game. Offenses are only averaging 2.2 yards per rush against Ole Miss. I think that trend continues, even though Montrell Johnson is great, even though Lagway, when healthy, is a very dynamic runner. You're not going to see him run this game. That he's all they got. I mean, this would be a huge win for Florida. And look, I think that the stadium is going to be absolutely bonkers. They went bonkers for LSU. Imagine bringing in a top 10 team like Ole Miss. Gainesville is going to be erupting, and we've been saying it. Kirby's been saying it. The SEC is a tough place to play at on the road, right? Gainesville is one of the toughest places to play in the SEC, let alone the entire country.
Even
this
when
could
they
be a little
suck.
bit, even when they suck. This could be a little bit of a weird game. Realistically, both coaches are coming off the best wins of their careers at their respective programs. Billy Napier finally won one, beats LSU, and then Lane Kiffin, of course, beats Georgia. Finally gets over the big game, and that's something that people doubted his ability to be able to do for his entire career, not just at Ole Miss, but for his entire career. People have doubted Lane Kiffin. So both coaches get the big win under the belt. Both teams have some momentum going into this football game. I think it could be pretty weird. I think this one could get sideways. I think the line is right. When you look at what Ole Miss did to Georgia, you might say, yeah, Ole Miss should be favored by about 20 against Florida. Well, Florida's playing pretty good football. Vegas knows what they're doing, and makes this line really tough to bet against. I really wanted to take Florida in the points, but this is a pretty stingy line. I'd like to see it get over 10 at least.
Oh, it will.
I do think that this is going to be a bit of a tight game, but I like Ole Miss to win it at the end of the day. Also, I forgot to mention, but I really like Florida's pass rush. I thought they brought pressure the entire game against LSU, and you're going to have to do that against Ole Miss as well. Like you said, a similar offense to what LSU wants to do. Can they do that and be effective against Ole Miss's offensive line? I mean, if they're doing it against LSU's offensive line, who's to say they can't do it against Ole Miss's? The difference is LSU is built a little bit more on the deep ball, whereas Ole Miss can get it out nice and quick and not allow the pass rush to really be effective against them. And they sort of make up for their deficiencies on the O-line, which is the weakest part of this offense. So I think scheme-wise, Lane Kiffin can kind of scheme around that. But how do they prepare this week? I think that's the biggest question. What is the game plan for the Ole Miss offense going into this week, going up against a Florida defense that seems to be finding their own with their pass rush here recently?
Yeah, and on the other side of that, Ole Miss's pass rush, number one in the country in tackles for loss and sacks. So number one or number two, they've been kind of back and forth. Florida has allowed 10 sacks all season. That's 27th in the country. This Florida rushing attack is 80th in the country at about 145 yards per game on the ground. Something's got to give here. And for Florida to have success, they're going to have to be able to run the football. You say Montrell Johnson is back. I assume he'll probably be back in a better version this week than he was this past week. And I think that's really good news for Florida. I'm with you, Mason. I'd love to bet on Florida here, but I got to see it get to 10 or 11. And I think that we're definitely look. This line is begging you to take Ole Miss. Just admit it. You're watching this breakdown right now. You know damn well that Vegas is calling out to you. Give me your money. Give me your money. You know you want to take Ole Miss. You think that Ole Miss is going to win this by 21. And that's the trickery involved here. Tune in Thursday. We're going to talk more about this game, more than likely on our best bet show. That's called Between the Lines. It's a little play on words there if you don't get it. Come join us. That's usually around 8 o'clock Eastern every single Thursday. We give you our best bets against the spread. This will probably be one of the games that we'll talk about on there. We'll see where this line moves between now and then. And I hope that you'll subscribe to the First and Long College Football Show if you haven't done it already. Hit the like button for us. Good luck this weekend. I appreciate it.